Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another episode of Get the Money Moving with me, Emma Jones, the Small Business Commissioner, and I am delighted today to be joined by Shirley Cooper, OBE, who is the SME Crown Representative. Shirley, you are a good friend of mine. It is delightful to have you on this webinar. A very warm welcome to you. Now, Shirley, you've been SME Crown Rep for a while, but you had a wonderful, esteemed career before coming into government. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you very much, Emma. Thank you for inviting me today. Well, I have been very fortunate with the career that I've had, and it seems to fit very well with the role that I have now. And as you know, the Crown Representative role for small businesses is to lead the relationship between government and small businesses, and to be the bridge between the two, or the many, and to look for successful opportunities for both sides. So my career has spanned both sides. I've been a commercial leader and I've worked as a small business as well, and also worked across government. And I started work at 18 at Rowntree Mackintosh in Yorkshire. And so I was very fortunate that they saw the financial skills I had, and and allowed me to progress through a financial career. And I worked with companies like Yorkshire Water, Leeds Teaching Hospitals, and Carlsberg Tetley, all allowing me to work within finance, and that has given me a great grounding in finance and operations and how businesses run. And then I pivoted again into procurement and supply chain, and I've led big commercial operations in these spaces, which allowed me to become chair and president of the Institute of Procurement and Supply. So I'm reasonably well known across the procurement profession, and I founded the fellowship as it is today, with 1,000 fellows across the globe. So that allows me access to a lot of the relevant people that can and do support small businesses. And then most relevant to this role is I co-founded a small business back in 2011 based in Yorkshire. We wanted to create global work, agile work in Yorkshire. And we did. We scaled it, and we transferred the ownership as an EOT to our employees back in 2020. And that allowed me to really understand the challenges of starting a business, growing a business, dealing with the payroll, dealing with cash flow, and all that comes with employing many people. And so I feel I'm suitably qualified to support small businesses in the challenges they face in gaining access to public procurement. So that's my background, and I think that's why I might have been appointed.
Yeah, amazing, brilliant. And Shirley, you're doing a great job in roles. So let's talk a little bit about when you first started, because you came in at the time the Procurement Act was coming into effect. So Shirley, if you're happy, for our listeners, give us a bit of an outline as to what the Procurement Act is and how does it relate to small businesses.
Well, the Procurement Act is the most fundamental procurement opportunity for small businesses in a generation, in a decade. It is a major overhaul of legislation that puts small businesses front and central of working with government. And there's two words that stand out for me loud and clear: have regard for small businesses in everything they do. The buyers need to be transparent, flexible, agile, and look for opportunities to bring small businesses in. And that is the game-changing legislation that allows me to promote and support small businesses finding access points and working with all the government departments who are looking for small businesses. And just as a piece of new information, I get my data from everywhere. You know, I'm an accountant, so I can't help it. I read everybody's data that comes out, and Tussles was out today, and they're talking about the latest figures for 2025. I can't wait to tell everybody that it's increase. So 2025 is the first year of the legislation, and so we're still waiting for the government data, because their data will be calculated April to March, and Tussles is for the whole of 25. So this has got 10 months of the data from the Procurement Act, and it's saying it's the highest spend direct with SMEs in 6 years. It's the highest spend. So that's really good news.
That is superb. Is there an overall percentage coming out of that, Shirley?
On Tussle's report, it says 22% of direct spend with the public sector is with SMEs.
Lovely. Well, That is such good news. And hold that thought, because of course, government departments recently came out with their SME spend
Yeah.
targets. And again, Shirley, for kind of the benefit of those listening in, what are those SME spend targets, and kind of what's your view on kind of the amounts that came out from each of the central government departments?
So I've spent a lot of time with the government departments, and this is one of my key roles to work with every single central department to look at their action plans and targets. The National Procurement Policy Statement demands regulates that all these departments that are spending more than £100 million a year are required to set targets for the next 3 years and action plans associated with that. And having reviewed all these, I can honestly and happily say there is a massive amount of work going on to support the need to deliver against those targets. The targets have only recently come out, but what I am seeing in the action plans and the delivery of that is that many departments are working towards finding the small businesses through their trade bodies, through meet the buyer events, pre-market engagement, pipeline work. It's all starting to move.
Brilliant. And to that point, Shirley, because I know that you also go to lots of events giving advice to small businesses on how to sell into the public sector. What would be your top tips for businesses? Because you set out this kind of wonderful scenario that the legislation is in place to have
Mhm.
regard for small firms.
Yeah.
The tussle data is showing that it's starting to be activated and it's starting to work. So what advice would you give to small firms who think actually this is the time for me to look at the public sector?
So the number one on the list is have a look, see what's going on, because it's new, it's different, it's not what went before. And yes, procurement can be slow in the public sector, but it's worth a look. So number one, have a look. Number two, consider your own strategy. What is it you're good at? What the public sector might need, and then consider how to work towards that. Um, to do that, I would suggest looking at the action plans for each department, and they can be found, and we can cover that. And I would also look at your own back office. As an accountant, can't help it, and running my own business, can't help it. We have to have our own house in order, and it does require good governance, whatever size you are, and it needs to be proportionate for the size of business. So the financial plans in place, the cyber protection in place, and all those things, equity, equality and diversity, whatever size you are, you need to be proportionate, but it needs to be in place because that's what the frameworks will look for. So that needs to be upfront and ready to go for it.
Brilliant. And you just mentioned reading the SME action plans. So, Shirley, where would businesses find these? So, each central government department has produced one. Where
Mhm.
would I go and find these?
So I double checked last night and I just went to gov.uk and typed in SME action plans, just in case that was the just the phrase that you used on Google, and there are other places to find them. But the Government UK website, Government UK, will actually take you to the SME action plans. There will be some older ones there, so make sure you look at the ones that say March 26, and they're all there. And the thing you will find in those action plans is what they're looking for, what they're going to do about finding you as an SME, and also some contact details. And I'm asked regularly, can you put me in touch with? And I think if you're an SME and you want to find your own access points, many of these plans have access points, and also the opportunity to join their mailing lists because they will be publishing when they will be having SME events for meet the buyer, pre-market engagement, etc. And so those will be direct access points for each small business to consider.
Brilliant. Now, Shirley, you've mentioned people contact you to say, can you connect me in with a government department? But your job is actually only a part-time role. So it's a
Yes,
huge job with huge
yes,
targets on a part-time basis. How
yes.
do you prioritize your time and how do you determine what your priorities are? And Shirley, if you're happy, share maybe what your current priorities are with us.
Yes, well, it is part-time and I absolutely adore the role. It doesn't feel like work when you really enjoy what you do. And so the most important thing for me is to be focused. And to be focused in this role is making sure I have influence on behalf of the 5.5 million small businesses that are in the UK. And to do that, my first priority is to make sure I've got a seat at the table for all the big decisions. Everything that impacts SMEs, am I at the table? Have I got the voice of the SME? Am I saying the right things? And so to achieve that, I will attend events where there are SMEs and usually linked to the trade bodies. So if the trade bodies are hosting events, I'm delighted to be there so I can meet the SMEs and get involved with what their issues and opportunities are, and then feed them back into the system. So it's a positive cycle of success for where we're going. And then working with the departments. So all the departments, it's a new way of working. It's a new legislation. So 36,000 buyers across government
Wow.
have completed their accreditation because they needed to be qualified to undertake this work because it's legislation. And so that's one aspect, but it's the cultural change that comes with that, doing it differently. So I work a lot across the departments as well, working with the procurement profession to encourage and embed the new opportunities and practices, and working with them with their Meet the Buyer events and pre-market engagement to ensure that we've got the right SMEs coming forward, all SMEs that are relevant for the subject that they're buying for.
Amazing. You mentioned 36,000 buyers, and then you went to say that they've done their training. Is that the total number of buyers in central government? Oh, there's more.
There'll be more. I
Would you
don't know
happen
it
to know
is.
the total
I don't
figure?
know the
Okay.
number at the top of my head. It's a very big figure, but don't forget, not everybody needs to qualify straight away. This is the
Yeah.
first year of the legislation, and there are contracts that are running for 25 years. So
Wow.
there are a lot of people that aren't ready to do the qualification that will be morphed into those roles where they don't need to know the legislation because there's still plenty of contracts in existence. And that's why it's a hockey curve change with regards to where is the procurement? Why isn't it like now? It's because the contracts have to run out first to come back to market. And what we also found was quite a few of the procurements came out just before February because they knew the legislation, it's what they needed, and they needed to get it done. So there was so Tussle and other providers and government data demonstrates January was a busy month
I love
last
that.
year.
Get them out the door before this
Yeah,
stuff changes.
yeah,
No, that makes sense. Now, talk of legislation. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that in our own office of the Small
yes,
Business Commissioner,
yes,
we've had a couple of exciting weeks of the
yes.
our own bill, the Commercial Payments Bill, announced in the King's Speech, and hopefully is going through legislation. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the topic of payments in the public sector. So, Shirley, I have always kind of said one of the great reasons why small businesses should sell to the public sector is because they pay very rapidly. So, what are you seeing when it comes to payment from the public sector to SMEs?
Well, I think that the public sector do a good job at paying their suppliers, and that's why it's good for SMEs to be part of this supply chain. Private sector's not as good. And that's where your work comes in, isn't it? And that's the phenomenal work that you're doing to support that. And yes, so there's always work to be done on both sides, on every side when it comes to payments. As an FD, it takes a village, it takes a country to move it all forward. And I would say to small businesses, when you are pushing your invoices in to be paid, make sure they're right first time. Don't give any excuses for a department to push it back, whether it's public sector, private, anywhere. Make sure the purchase order number's on there. It's got everything they wanted, the reference numbers, etc., and in the format they want. And then there's not, because that's one of the big issues as well. It's not just that they're not getting paid on time; is that there's a lot of issues behind the scenes which don't get talked about. So as an FD, I would encourage SMEs to look at their own house as well as pushing for good payment.
Brilliant. Great advice. And so, my final question, Shirley, say we're here again in 12 months' time. What would you love SME procurement to look like over the next 12 months?
Well, I would love all the SMEs on the call or are dialing in here, to just consider if it's for them. It's got to be part of your strategy because it's a slower process in the private sector. But once you're supplying to government, it's a regular customer. It's not going to go bust. It's going to pay on time. It's got stability. It's got all the positives that the British SMEs would want. And so to give a look at it. And in 12 months' time, from the government department's point of view, I would love to see I'm seeing them all again in September to see where they are halfway in with all their action plans. So the big ticket thing for small businesses, I would suggest looking at those action plans, making sure you're signed up to the Meet the Buyer events. They are game changers and they sell out in a day. Sell out, they're free to attend, but they're full in every single one that comes out, they're full. So when you see them on LinkedIn, or if you're on the mailing list and you're thinking, should I go? Sign up, because you can always cancel, and please cancel if you're not going to take a place, because there's always a very long wait list. Look at where you can sit on the pre-market engagement. Many departments will be doing that as well. So if you really want to get in there and change what people are buying because of your game-changing product or service, the pre-market engagement will be the place to be. And those are my top ticket items for. I'd just love to meet all the SMEs and see them coming to the Meet the Buyer events, and also working with your good self and the other supporters of small businesses. There are so many that need to get access points, and we need to support them in getting them.
Amazing. It's going to be a busy year. Shirley, you are doing a great job. And I love this concept of when you get those departments around the table in September, you'll be holding them to account on how they've delivered on those action plans. So you have been a superstar. Thank you so much for joining us. Shirley Cooper, OBE, SME Crown Representative. Thanks so much for joining us on Get the Money Moving. Thanks, Shirley.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you. Lovely to see you. Bye-bye.
You